Hey everyone, we're here at Korg for a video overview tutorial series on the Korg Prologue analog synthesizer. This is Prologue 16 with 16 voices, but Prologue's also available in an 8-voice version. This video is going to cover Prologue's performance features, like arpeggiation, voice modes, and the ability to split, layer, and crossfade. So the Prologue has some really useful performance features to help you when you're playing live, and one of those is Arpeggiator. And the Arpeggiator is used to basically have the Prologue play a string of notes that you input using the keyboard, but in a rhythm or an order that's automatically determined by the Arpeggiator. So an example of that, if I turn on the Arpeggiator over here, I can change the type. And then of course I can change the range. And then of course I can tap tempo. And then I can sync to external tempo if I use sync in or out or MIDI tempo. And then there's latch. So if I hold that button down and I play a string of notes, it'll latch on and keep playing those notes when I release the keys. The second performance feature on Prologue is voice modes, and those voice modes might be familiar to you if you're familiar with the Korg Minilogue, for example, and they're used to kind of spice up the way that you utilize Prologue's voices, and so you're not just playing in poly or mono mode, you're really getting the full use out of the 16 voices on Prologue 16, for example. So the first mode is a poly mode, but if I turn up what's called the voice mode depth, I'm actually getting a duophonic note for each note I'm playing on the keyboard, and turning that up increases the slight detune and thickness of that duophonic. So you can get really nice thick chords that way. The second voice mode is mono mode, which is pretty simple. It's a monophonic synth sound. And if I turn up the voice mode depth, I get a sub oscillator, and I can make really nice fat sub basses that way. The third voice mode is a unison mode, which stacks all of Prologue's voices on top of each other for an incredibly fat unison sound. And of course the voice mode depth controls the detune. The last voice mode is chord mode, and that's a mode in which if I play a note, chord mode will play a chord with the root on that note, and the chord that I'm playing is determined by the voice mode depth knob. So another incredibly useful feature on Prologue for performance is bitimbrality. And what that essentially is combining two different timbres at the same time in 3 different ways. Split, which splits the keyboard with one section being one timbre and the other section being another timbre. Crossfade, which is exclusive and new to Prologue, which fades from one timbre up into another timbre on the other end of the keyboard. And then layer, which is essentially all keys on the keybed being both timbres layered on top of each other. And there's a main sub balance knob over here, which controls how much of each timbre you get. And then there's other stuff like, for example, a split point where the point at which the keybed is split will change, so you can have maybe 1 octave of bass and then 3 octaves or 4 octaves of chords on the right hand. So the way to create a split, a layer, or a crossfade from scratch is to first select a program that you like. In this example, I'm going to be using program number 24, but you could use literally any program that isn't already a split, layer, or crossfade, and press Program Fetch and hold. And now you're in Program Fetch mode. So this is going to determine what the second program that you're splitting, layering, or crossfading will be. So let's just select a kind of muted brass sound to go with our very bright brass sound. Then press write. This is not going to write it into the internal memory of Prologue, it's just going to confirm that that's the sound that you want to use as the second timbre. Now with this switch I can determine whether that's a split, crossfade, or layer, and then with this switch I can actually change which timbre I'm editing. This is the subtimbre, the main timbre, and then I can edit both with the front panel at once using the middle selection. So right now I have both of those sounds layered, and with the main sub balance knob I can determine how much of each is layered. So layering two fairly different sounds together, I can get some really nice lush results. Now if I want to write that program into Prologue's internal memory, I simply press write, and that's going to write that layer, split, or crossfade when I press write again after selecting the slot that I want to use. Remember, you can use the arpeggiator while in a split layer or crossfade, and if you only want to use that on one of the sounds in the split layer or crossfade, you can do this by accessing the menu, going to Program Edit, and then going to Other Settings, Arpeggiator, Main, and Sub, or switch it to Main, or just Sub. So that's the Korg Prologue analog synthesizer. If you like this video, or you have a question, or you want to let us know about a cool sound you made on your Prologue, let us know in the comments below, and remember to subscribe to the Korg YouTube channel. Thanks so much for watching.